Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm Kwanza Hall, Atlanta City Councilman for District 2. Really good to be here, y'all. On behalf of Mayor Reed, Council President Mitch, all of my colleagues, just want to say you are the lifeblood of the future of Atlanta. And we need you to be doing this. And if it were not for NLC, the great team we have in Amani, Ebony, Zila, and everybody else who's been a part of this. I remember a couple of years ago, we all were just sitting out here in one of these great little meeting spaces and just talking about an idea. And it has come to fruition in a way that I just cannot express in words. To see in your eyes, and I don't know many of you all, so I really feel good about this, because I bet you're dangerous. You know what I mean? You're going to make a difference in a way that, you know, folks in my generation, I'm 40, so I'm not that far off from some of you all, but still, I feel like I'm with the old school. You know what I mean? And we really need to break the mold. We're in a paradigm shift mode in Atlanta. There's a sea change happening, and you have to lead it. It's really up to you all. You have to embrace this, own it, and run with it. So as a council member for the heart of Atlanta, District 2 is the most diverse district in the city. It goes from Castleberry Hill to Atlantic Station. Georgia Tech, Georgia State, Old Fourth Ward, Emmett Park, Ponce Highlands. I mean, it's a really fun part of town. A lot going on. When I ran for office, initially I ran for the school board in 2002. And I was elected in a district that went from Atlantic Station all the way down to Thomasville. I don't know if you know where that is, where the jail is. There's a federal penitentiary down there below Grant Park, below Ormwood Park. So it's an even more diverse area. And then when I ran for city council in 2005, it was a little bit smaller. But, you know, my election has always been an election that was around diversity, around being able to reach out to all kinds of folks. And I want to encourage you all to be those type of people. That's what the city needs. I had 8 senior citizen high-rises, predominantly African-Americans living on fixed income. We had Jane Fonda, Ted Turner, and everybody in between. And those are the folks that we had to campaign to. We had to convince all these folks to support our candidacy. And it was a team effort. We had probably it was about 30 to 40% gay at that time, and it still is. And, you know, just a real diverse community. And it made it easy to wake up every day, because, you know, first hour I would be, you know, at a black church on Sunday. There are 100 churches in the district. I would spend, you know, another hour at St. Luke's. Then I would go to a Presbyterian church, then I go to a Catholic. And I mean, just the experience in one day just helped to stretch me, and it's continuing to stretch me. And I think that's what growth is about, and that is what the leadership of Atlanta has to have the ability to do, that flexibility, that openness to receive, you know, from all kinds of places, because you never know what's going to really make you grow. So when I was elected to council, there was one person, and he was the dean of the council. His name was Jim Maddox, and he chaired our international committee. He founded and chaired, so he had been the chair, I guess, for, I don't know, 20 years. Since a little bit before the Olympics, the council recognized that they needed to have a face to the international affairs that were going on alongside the mayor. So you have council, which is legislative branch, mayor, executive branch, and you have judges that are judicial branch. But not all folks think that. They don't know that. We all have to work together. We're the governing body. We go to perpetuity. We don't have term limits. Mayors have term limits. So the council was like, well, what if there's a deal between Saudi Arabia in 1996 and it goes for 15 years? Who's going to be the steward of that? How are we going to make sure we know what's going on? So we need council members involved in this. So Jim was really astute and you know, on point about trying to be involved in that, and he kind of brought me along when I got elected. Said, Kwanza, you ought to come and be a part of international. I was like, yeah, Jim, I like that. Everybody else on council was kind of like, well, that's important. They even tried to knock the office. Wow. And actually, Mayor Franklin, unfortunately, due to budget cuts, had to slash the mayor's side of the office. So it was kind of like Jim and I just going around to, and Maisha would come, and she was supporting Jim, and we would just show up and you know, try to represent Atlanta to over 70 consulates. There's 70 countries who have full-fledged, and in some cases a few have honorary consulates, but for the most part they have offices that represent their countries. Mexico is one of the largest. I mean, the Mexican consulate is responsible for 5 states, you know, a couple of million people from Mexico. And many other consul generals have, you know, the responsibility to make sure that their president gets in and out of the city airport, gets whatever they need, as well as the constituents who are living here or who pass through Atlanta. And they need a relationship with the city. So, we've stepped up and kind of helped to build that relationship, be the bridge, and I think it's going to, be good in the long term for Atlanta as we begin to see new leaders stepping in and you all becoming a part of the fold. If you have a special interest in any part of the world and you want to help to kind of make those connections or be a part of it, this is the time to do it. So regardless of what you're doing locally, you should find one international avenue that you want to be connected to. We had the Olympics, we had the business airport, but the things that will happen in the future, you can use technology, and you have to just kind of reach out and begin to connect those dots. If you've traveled to all these countries, but you've never really tapped those relationships, you might be the linchpin in some big deal happening in the future in Atlanta, or even right now. So just, open your eyes to that, and I just want to encourage you to be a part of the international face of Atlanta and bring people here, recruit them, invite them to come and see what our great city has to offer. As far as the opportunity going forward, it really is in your hands. I can't say enough about social entrepreneurs, about small business people, about folks who want to break the mold, who are tired of the mold, don't even know there is a mold that used to be there, aren't accepting the status quo. That's what we need to do. It's kind of revolutionary in a way, but for Atlanta to really be able to, I'm sorry, my phone's going off and I'm going to turn it off, y'all. Sorry about that. But for Atlanta to really be what it's supposed to be, it's going to require that we have folks who are open to just doing things totally different from the way they've been done. Historically, the city has been run by kind of two groups. One group is in Southwest Atlanta, where I grew up, and it's predominantly African Americans, and the other group is in the Northeast, the Northwest side of Atlanta, and West Paces, Buckhead area, Peachtree Battle, and North. Those two groups would kind of come together and make agreement, compromise. And if you might have read the book Where Peachtree Meets Sweet Auburn. It's a history of Atlanta, and if you haven't, I recommend that you read it because it tells a lot about race and class and politics and business in Atlanta. It's kind of like a must-read book if you're here in Atlanta. But these two groups have kind of dominated the city, but they're newcomers to Atlanta, and they kind of done it the old way. And oftentimes, I'd say a little bit more than 50% of the time, let's say they've got it right. But the other 40 or so has been a compromise where you neglect excellence. And to make, you might see it in how services are delivered from a city perspective. You might see it in things that just don't make sense if you're not from Atlanta. Why do they do it like this? Why aren't they prepared for these things? And it's not just city government, it's just kind of things that seem a little backwards. And every city has their own little nuance, but we're supposed to be kind of a leader. So there's some things that other cities and other places around the world figured out. And we still are behind the times. And we haven't figured out, we have CNN and we got all this information, we don't know that you don't do it that way anymore. So it's kind of that's what the problem has been. And a lot of folks live in between. So the two groups that have kind of been sacrificed as a result of this would be the really, really poor, the newcomers, the different folks in the heart of the city. Okay? But I think things are beginning to change because people are waking up, the economy's different, folks are saying, wait a minute, it can't continue to be like it has been. It's got to be a different way. You've got to do it different than you've done it in the past. And I hear it as a council member every day from my constituents who are, folks who just relocated from Silicon Valley. They did really well out there. Now they just want to play around in Atlanta, heard it was cool, and then they start trying to figure out, why don't you have, a grocery store on this corner? Why isn't Auburn Avenue fixed? And, you've had all these African-American mayors. Some things just don't make sense for whatever reason. So we've got to kind of break out of those things. But I think the solutions are really, in your heads, in your minds, in your computers, and your phones. And you've got to kind of bring them to the table and begin to act on them. Use folks like me to be the conduit to get it done. I want to create the environment that's fertile for you all to grow and to grow companies or to be entrepreneurial, be leaders, employ people. We need jobs. And I don't think we can count on the traditional models. We can't count on Turner to expand a whole lot more. We can't count on the IBMs. We can't count on any of those folks. We can't count on the government. But we can count on you all. If just two of you all create another Apple or a Google or a CNN, that's thousands of people that could be employed. Thousands of people just like us. And that's really what we need. We need companies that have the right spirit, the right heart, that are innovative, that are looking forward to making change happen. So that's where I think the change needs to happen in Atlanta. Outside of all the human, social, education, of course, is a very, very big issue. We need to turn that place upside down, not just Atlanta public schools, but really school districts in the urban core around the country. We've got to break those molds. I went to Atlanta public schools, had a son who went through the school system. It was a lot better when I was growing up, and it seemed to just kind of change. We had a lot of superintendents, maybe 2 every year for about 8-10 years, and after that, the system got even more off track. Not that it was ever perfect, but I think it also will require entrepreneurial leaders to step in who are a lot younger, not the folks who are out of touch. I mean, we have people who have PhDs, they're 50 or 60 years old, and they're trying to talk to parents who are about our age. Okay, who the number one, I guess, bestseller would be, I don't know, one of the Zane books, or that they read, or listen to Lil Wayne more than they listen to anybody else. That's the reality of what we're doing. And not that there's anything wrong with Lil Wayne or any Zane books or whatever, but that's the reality. So you got 2 different groups, and this group is trying to influence them to get their kids a good education. So there's a disconnect in terms of communication, in terms of culture, in terms of even just being able to say hello to each other. It doesn't work. So we're a little closer in terms of age, in terms of connectivity. We need to be that bridge, or at least be a part of the conversation, because otherwise you're going to have a lot more kids who are just kind of falling off, and it really will be our fault that we didn't play a role in that as well. So I'll kind of stop here, but I just wanted to say again, on behalf of the City of Atlanta, we thank you all for stepping up to be leaders in this way, and we thank NLC for the partnership. It's really grown to be something great. When Ebony called me about this, I was like, what is she talking about? I was like, is she really trying to do this? But when Amani called, he brought the camera. I was like, okay, this is real. His camera's like fixed to his arm. It's like another one on the back of his head. But they're serious, and this is a real group, y'all, nationwide, doing very serious stuff. So the responsibility that you have is not only to be a part of this and take something away, but also to come back and continue to give and seek out other great people who may come to the class, and even if they don't, keep them involved and keep them around this group, and share contacts and relationships. So thank you again, and again, the city thanks you for being a part. Thanks to NLC.
Some of you all may have heard about this event, but every year New Leaders Council has a national 40 under 40, and we took the time to honor our favorite councilman, Kwanza Hall, for the 40 under 40 last year, after all of the tireless work and commitment that he actually gave to us, and it was a real honor to be able to present this to you. So thank you again, and this is your plaque.
Thank you.
We've been waiting since July last year.
Y'all hold that.